Welcome to Tell Me Your Radio Story, where I ask radio professionals how did they start in radio and where they are right now. My name is Dan Blackman. Thank you so much for being here. This episode, I'm speaking to Jack Kratoville. He is the weekend host, and also he's the fill-in guy, 20-year vet, 106.7 Light FM in New York City. Jack, welcome.
Thank you for having me. A pleasure to be here.
How are you? So
the first question was where I'm at. I'm in my basement. We're remote working. That's what we're doing.
Absolutely. It looks great, too. I love
Thanks.
the setup. So tell me your radio story. How did you start in radio?
You know, it's interesting because I remember getting a radio and being fascinated by the fact that there was stuff coming out of it and it wasn't connected to wires or stuff. And I went to I think my aunt brought me to a local radio station, and I watched the guy yelling and playing songs off records, and I thought this looks like a great thing to do. And when I was in high school, I went back to that station when I got my license and said, "Look, I'll sweep the floors, I'll pick up papers, whatever you want me to do. I just want to watch what you guys do and hang out." And after a few weeks, the news guy came in, asked me to read something. I did. And then a month later, he quit. And the guy says, "Well, I don't have anybody to go on." So I went on and read the news.
Now, so this is Long Island?
Yes. As a matter of fact, it's right near where I'm living right now. It was the local station for Riverhead, New York. And they were in a drive-in theater. They had a little studio, and I would just drive over there and check it out.
And this is an AM station or FM?
AM and FM. I never really went on the air as a host, but I did do the news there for about a year while I was in high school. I would go there early in the morning. I would tape 5 newscasts on a reel of tape, and then they would play it all morning long. And then I'd go back in the afternoon and sweep and do what I originally intended.
That is really cool. Now, when you were doing that for a year, did you think, you know what, I think I want to be a newsman? Or how did you get into DJing then?
I never wanted to be news, but back then you needed a license from the FCC to be able to go on the air as a host, because you would take readings and you had to do things manually. So I was always on the air with somebody, and I thought, all right, my parents wanted me to go away to college, and I figured after that I would get the license in that, and then I would become on air as a music host or DJ.
So the college that you went to, they didn't have a radio station?
They did. They had 2. One was FM, and you could either have somebody engineer and take the readings for you, or you could get your license, and I did my first year. And then we had a carrier current station. To explain that to folks who may have never heard that, it went through the electricity in the building. So if you were in the building, you could hear it on your radio, but it didn't go much further than that. It's like a low power, very low power.
So what was your first professional DJing job on the radio then?
It was another local station that's kind of famous, WLNG, which played oldies, jingles. You did whatever you wanted. You could play whatever you wanted. And that was where the guy, I wanted to use some radio name because Kratoville was, who used that? And he said, no, everybody knows your family. I want you to use your real name. And I thought, well, okay. And that's what got me started using that. And I did that for a summer before I went to Hartford, which was my first full-time job in about 42 years ago.
I've said this before on other episodes. It's very interesting. Radio is a small community, and even though maybe sometimes you don't meet people in person, you know their names, and you and I have kind of overlapped in different areas, and we'll get into that.
You not only know their name, but you know where they worked.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember listening to you on such and such a station.
Now, in your early career, can you point out anybody that really was very helpful, that gave you great advice that you thought, okay, this person has pointed me in the right direction? And maybe do you still talk to them today?
Well, there are a couple of people, and the first person, because I wanted to talk to anybody who had experience in this business. I wanted to learn as much as I could. And I think the first and probably the best piece of advice I ever got from a gentleman, Rick Lorenzo. No, I don't talk to him anymore. He told me, look, always be working on your craft. Don't ever stop learning. Don't ever stop trying to be better. And as a 20-year-old, yeah, you take it with a grain of salt. But you know something, that's probably the best advice I ever got, aside from my father, who said, I don't care what you do, just be as good at it as you can. And then there was somebody else who came along some years later. His name was Jay Williams. He was a consultant for a station I worked with. And he was the one who kind of told me that when you're on the radio, you're an actor playing the role of yourself. And boy, that rattled around in my brain for such a long time. And then I realized, well, yeah, somebody's listening to hang out with me. And I probably should be on my best behavior if they're going to be doing that. So I think those two things were probably what I've carried along most throughout my career.
What is something that someone asked you, okay, you play similar music, not repetitious, but you play it a lot. How do you come into a different angle and say something about it where it's fresh and new to someone just tuning in and you make it interesting?
Well, I think that for some people it might be new. I think for others, and we've all realized this maybe within the past year, is that we're comfortable with things that we know, that we're familiar with. We want to feel good. So, yeah, it's something we know the words. It's something that sounds familiar. And what we have to realize, even though we're in the studio playing these songs over and over and over again, other people aren't necessarily listening that much or paying attention as much as we are. So a song comes on that they like, they get excited. It's not my job to be to make decisions on the music. It's to present it in a way that they have comfortable company while they're listening to their favorite songs. It's kind of like hanging out in your living room and watching a TV show or listening to songs on your smartphone. We're hanging out together, enjoying music.
And you do that very well. That's why you are a 20-year veteran at 106.7 Light FM and doing that well.
I have photos too, but we won't talk about those.
So take me on the journey now, Jack, from Hartford to now in New York. Give me a synopsis of some stops along the way from Hartford to New York City.
Well, when I first went to Hartford, I thought to myself, I wanted to be a program director. I didn't particularly like working for someone else. I thought, hey, let me make the shots. I probably know more than anyone else. Punk kid thinking that way. So my first programming job, I came back to Long Island and did that for a while, went back to Hartford because they offered me a job. They wanted me to come back. And from there, back to Long Island. I kind of hopped over Long Island Sound a few times. And then from there, I got to know somebody who brought me into Philadelphia, which was very eye-opening because it was the first time that I was at a radio station that was a bigger market, that had a budget to do things that you wanted to do. And I learned from someone else who also was a veteran of the business and had been around and taught me a few things and knew a lot, but very intelligent person. And then that's kind of where I met the person who brought me into New York a few years later. And it's who you know, as you've heard many times, make friends, shake hands, your name will come up somewhere, somehow, and that might be the way to get into the door.
Connections.
Yes.
So my story with Jack Kratoville, how I first was introduced to Jack, was when Jack was a program director on Long Island. I had sent him a demo tape, and he's like, "Kid, you stink now." He was really nice, and a lot of people tell him this, and I think it's so true, is when you put good things out into the world, a lot of times those good things come back to you. And I know veterans have experienced this. When you send out your materials, you get no response. I know there are hundreds of people, if not even more, applying for jobs. But Jack was so nice to actually send me a letter saying, thanks for the tape, and I'll keep you in mind. Nothing's going on. And I always remembered that. And people have approached you many times, correct? the same thing.
I've had people who I did not give a job to who we've remained friends because of that experience. And, Dan, I think it's always, you want to treat people the way you'd like to be treated yourself. And I was on that end of where I was applying for jobs and trying to get feedback. And I always appreciated the people who did. And I thought that if I were ever in that position, that I would just take the time to let people know that, hey, I got your stuff. Thank you for trying. Right now, nothing's going on. But because you never know, there may be a time when you need that person. And you want to keep that connection. Yeah, I think in life, you really want to treat people the way you want to be treated.
Absolutely. So you're in Philadelphia, and you're on air or off air? Because you wanted to be in programming, so.
I was actually off air. It was the only job I ever had that I did not have an assigned shift. And it was funny because the Weather Channel mentioned this yesterday. 1996, 31 inches of snow in Philadelphia. I lived right down the road, so I actually went on the air overnight, and I remember closing down the Pennsylvania Turnpike, the New Jersey Turnpike, and I was all nervous because this was my first big city radio job, and here I am announcing these major things. I mean, it was 2 a.m, but still, it was a little exciting to do that. And I would also go to a place where you looked at radio ratings, and that's where I met the person who wound up being in New York before me. And I sent him a quick email saying, hey, I've been there. That's a nice office you have. And that's all I said. 2 years later, when I needed a job, I reached out, and he goes, well, stop by. Might hold you over until you find something else 20 years later.
Yeah, been there. You've been through several program directors and different changes at Light FM. How has Light FM to you changed over that 20 years?
Well, it's changed in a number of ways, and I think the most basic way is Light FM has always been for a 41-year-old female. That's the specific thing that they say. And that 41-year-old female 20 years ago listened to different music, went to school at a different time. So the 41-year-old female now is much, much different. And I think that's the biggest change for the public. In terms of interior, and I you and I both know Chris Conley, our program director, very well. And I don't say this, that people always say, well, you have to be nice, you have to say things. I don't have to say anything. But he is truly the best individual that I've ever worked for, and I've probably have learned and grown more with him at the helm than anyone else, because he allows you to be creative. He allows you to make some decisions, and you realize that, boy, I better do the right thing because I don't want to lose those privileges. And I've learned to grow a lot under him, and I'm very thankful because I'm having more fun now than I've ever had in the 40 years I've been doing this.
Everyone who's viewing right now, if you've not experienced this, hopefully you will with some kind of program director. The reason why also Chris Conley is tremendous is that he trusts you. Once he sees that you take direction and will do these things, then he trusts you to do the proper thing. And then you feel like, wow, he's trusting me. I have to do it from my end, as you just said, and continue on that path. And you want to keep doing well, so he'll keep trusting you. And that is a tremendous thing in radio. If someone trusts you and allows you to do your thing, you do grow and get better.
You do. Or you get fired because you misuse that trust. And we've seen many people do that. So to rise to the top, you respect where you are, what you're doing, and realize that, hey, you know what? There's a line 3 miles down the road for people who would easily take my place. Easily. So I better stay on the A-plus game.
So what do you think some of the aspects there, besides great management and knowing your target demo, that make Light FM successful and has been successful all these years?
Well, that's a tough question, because I think if we all knew that formula, we would go off and be successes ourselves. I think Light FM has the luxury of being around for such a long time and being managed by people who know how to keep things the way they should be and let the station grow. It's had bumps. There was a time when they decided, well, maybe we shouldn't call it light because that's a negative. And that happened to be the wrong decision. What you don't do is you change you change what people think of what light means, and you grow it that way. But overall, I think the station has never offended. I think the station plays the right songs that people want to hear in New York and surrounding areas. And I think the people who've been there have been there for such a long time that we have become friends with the audience, that we are people who, they would invite into their cars, into their homes, and wherever else they might be listening, at work.
Do you think the aspect of having fun and people can say, oh, I feel it from Jack. I could hear he's having fun, and that's contagious.
I think not only that, Dan, that's crucially important, but I think when you think about it, if you want to hear your favorite songs, how many different opportunities or how many different choices do you have to hear that? You can go on your phone. You could go to Spotify. You can go to your laptop. You can multiple places. What makes Light FM a destination is people like you and me who add just a little. We don't get in the way. I mean, I'm here to listen to Hotel California, not listen to you. So you play the songs and you're just there hanging out, not being annoying. You've had friends who've been annoying and you don't want to hang out with them. And then you have people that just chill with you and you can hang out with them all day. I'm the guy you can hang out and chill with.
Yes. I think of it this way, Jack. There are probably dozens upon dozens of steak houses in New York City, right?
Yes.
It's all about the presentation. You could get steak anywhere. You could get delicious steak anywhere. You're choosing a steakhouse because of the presentation besides the steak. So,
Dan, in the 40 years I've been doing this, I've just heard another nugget of information that I'm going to take with me for moving forward. No, that's a great analogy. It really is. Because we've all eaten in places that maybe the food's not the best, but we like the people who are waiting on us, or we like the view or something like that. No, absolutely.
I think also, so I've known Jack for at least 10 years or more in person, and we laugh and joke around, and he and I have similar sarcastic humors. And I think that's very important when you're working with people that you like and enjoy. I think, again, that contagious aspect of it, that people are having fun and joking around and know, wow, this is incredible. We're on a New York radio station. Let's show it and have people hear it. That's really important, right? It's really important, and I'll mention something, and I don't want you to feel bad because I don't know whether you were on this or not, but it was either the day or Christmas Eve. I get a text, and I realize it's a group text of the people on Light FM just saying, hey, miss you guys, because we haven't been in the studio for almost a year now. Yeah. We haven't seen each other face to face. And how's everybody going? And all of a sudden, within 20 minutes, we're all kind of going back and forth. It lasted for maybe 20 minutes, and we checked in, and I thought, wow, that really says something about what we all think of each other, to just reach out, to just kind of say, hey, how's it going? I mean, you and I have reached out. I know you've talked to other people at the station. It's so easy now that we're not going into the building together. We're not bumping into each other in the halls to just ignore things and do our own thing. But no, we still make it a point to talk to each other, to check in, to see how things are going. I mean, you can't bring me milkshakes anymore, which you used to do, but we'll survive. I still like you. You will. I owe you one. We open back up. The final question is this, and I've said this and asked it to other people that I've interviewed here on these episodes. I call this a radio community. It's small. In some aspects, it's shrinking. jobs are fewer to find. How do you feel, Jack, about being part of this radio community for this long?
I feel lucky, tremendously lucky. I feel honored, and I feel fortunate. I think I work hard at trying to stay within that community, but boy, it's been very lucky because something can happen, something can change, comes out of left field, has nothing to do with what you've done or what you've contributed all these years. And as I always kind of kid around with Chris, our boss, is when he goes, "How's it going?" And I always say to him, "Trying to stay relevant." and that, that's kind of the bottom line. I mean, somebody is paying you for your services, make sure that they're getting what they paid for and more so that they keep you around. I think there are a lot of, and I'll add this to that question, Dan, I think there are even more opportunities for people who like to do what we do. It's just going to be different. The delivery is going to be different. There are podcasts now. I've always been impressed going on YouTube, looking at how-to videos or review videos. There's a lot of talented people out there who are using that platform to express their opinions, to highlight certain music, to do all kinds of things. And I think the people who are really good at it will rise to the top and become stars within their own right. So just because our way of doing things is changing and diminishing, many, many more opportunities are opening up for people who like to be talent.
Yes. Listen to this man. He knows what he's talking about. His name is Jack Kratoville. Weekends on 106.7 Light FM, and he is the main fill-in person for Light FM. And that's, I think, what makes you very successful, too. Jack does fill-in morning, midday, afternoon drive. And then if there's anything left and Jack's busy, they ask me to do some stuff. But I appreciate it, Jack.
Oh, thank you very much.
Talking to you, and can't wait to hear you again.
Thank
Enjoy.
you.